Check, check. Awesome. Greetings, greetings, greetings to all. Welcome to Composting Conversations. I am Akhmostist The Compostist. And let me check my sounds real quick and we'll be right quack. Yeah, so we're good. We're good on the late night early tip. 215 on 225. Yeah, 23. So we're here. Can y'all see my hat? Let me see if y'all can see that. Can you see my hat? Let me see if y'all can see that. So y'all can see a little bit of it. So that's my composting hat. Greetings to all. My name is Akhmostist The Compostist. This is Composting Causations, a special edition. Usually I come to you on Saturday afternoon, and instead I'm coming to you Saturday like 12 hours earlier, in the middle of the night kind of situation. And yeah, mixing it up. It's still Saturday, so we're here. And today we're going to be doing a watch along. Give me just a moment. Yeah, so today we're going to be doing a watch along of a very cool and important documentary that was done on the site that I used to assistant manage on, the legendary one in Redhook, Brooklyn. So Redhook composting site in Redhook, Brooklyn. And so what you're going to see, well, over the previous few weeks, I've been highlighting the work that was done there in general, who started it, the foundations of it all, how it has moved throughout the years, and where it's presently at. Where it's presently at and where it's going, we haven't covered. And I'm less interested in that because I'm not a part of where it's presently at, other than getting it to where it's at, and where it's going. I'm in a different headspace in life. I'm focusing in on different elements of agriculture, sustainability, and composting. That of creating the world's first composting video game, along with a few other things, compost cologne, and growing this platform and this broadcast. And so this is more so a little bit of the past and how it got to the present. And we're highlighting the three people who were doing that work going back almost 5 years ago, 4.5 years ago, to be exact, just about, let me see. Yeah, about almost 4.5 years ago, exactly. So 4.5 years ago. The film is more so going to about 3.5 years ago. So this was filmed, I want to say springtime 2019, I want to say, because that was, let me see, he came August, he went to the other site. And then that was, yeah, so this was probably spring 2019, I want to say, if not autumn 2019. So and it's highlighting the three people who were managing and in charge of that site, starting with the head, Domingo Morales, myself, Akhmostist The Compostist, and Xander Shaw. So got to give credit where credit is due and carrying on the legacy of the man who created it. That being David Buckle and all of the volunteers throughout the years who have put in their, blood, sweat, and tears and volunteer hours and contributions, to the organizations as well, added value, RHI, Brooklyn Botanic Gardens, DSNY, NYC Composting Project, the Parks Department, which I'm not forgetting anybody. Um, yeah, a few other people, but those are like the main players in the situation. Apologies if I'm forgetting you, but yeah. So from the institutions, organizations, to the city of Brooklyn, to the neighborhood of Redhook, Brooklyn, and the surrounding community, to the volunteers at the core, of what makes it go. And so we shall go forth and we shall watch this brief documentary, Fair Use. Thank you, Locomotives, for this piece together. It seems something of value in the work that was done with the names that I just mentioned. And I'm thankful to have been a part of that legacy that continue onwards to this day. To this day. So let's get into it. And I'm going to share my screen now. And this is where we're at. So moving forward, as you can see, I've already liked this and subscribed to the channel. Let me actually change. Let me actually do this because you shouldn't be seeing that. So let me do this real quick. Pardon me. What am I doing? I am doing... I'm not doing the Garkop 3000. Not my cup of tea. So let's go there. Boom, 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 boom.
I love fiberglass
we don't
window.
do the fiberglass window advertising on my channel. That we do not do. And oh my God, people are already getting ready for some Easter stuff. Please. Okay. Forward to it. So now, there we go. So as you can see, Black Gold in the Big Apple, composting in Brooklyn, New York. Locomotives, they got 1.9 subscribers. Let me subscribe as well. As Akhmostist The Compostist, I've already liked the video. 1.9 thousand views 2 years ago. And let's read. It says, the nation's largest compost operation to run entirely on renewable resources, solar, wind, and volunteer labor can be found at Brooklyn's Redhook Community Farm. Managed by the Brooklyn Botanical Garden, this project relies on more than 2,000 volunteers annually to help convert over 150 tons of organic matter from waste to nutrient-rich compost soil. Cherished by gardeners and often referred to as black gold. Not only can composting improve soil health, but it's more efficient and cost-effective than sending food waste to landfills and reduces methane emissions. In this episode of the Locomotive series, we pick up a shovel and join a group of volunteers to learn what it's all about. More information on the Redhook Community Farm composting operation and how to volunteer. So they got the link. I'm not even sure. Let me click and see if this is still active. Yeah, I don't know what BBG has going on. So I'm not going to advertise their stuff as it pertains to the composting site. For home composting basics, this is the EPA's composting at home stuff. Locomotive series. Well, it says Locomotives is a documentary series showcasing the relatable people, relevant places, and family and familiar. Pardon me, y'all. It's late. Locomotives is a documentary series showcasing the relatable people, relevant places, and familiar topics on the front lines of climate change. It is the production of two lifelong friends, Nate and Murray, and Cody Fetzer, traveling to all 50 states in an effort to establish an authentic stream of grassroots communication. That's amazing, guys. Thank you very much for your great work. And you can follow them on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, as well as their website. If we click on their website, see what comes up. All right, cool. York College, Ag and Tech in Washington. This is amazing. So check out the website and see what they're doing. 2020 route. It doesn't look like they may have updated it in a few years, but potentially, but they still have incredible content. So check them out, get informed, and be a part of what's happening. So fair use. I'm going to share it. Let's see what some comments are. But you can see, okay, the Compliment King makes it all worthwhile. Thank you. Awesome video, sub, cheers from Victoria, Canada. Sweet. D is a good. This is good content. Good stuff. Very educational. Thank you. Wouldn't earth moving equipment help? Maybe it could be donated. That goes against the point, Cynthia. Like, let me see who replied. It says, thanks, Cynthia. For a lot of composting sites, larger equipment and machines can be very effective and time efficient. When we talked to the volunteers at the Redhook site, we learned that they prefer to do things by hand for a few reasons, but mainly they value the opportunity to learn about the process up close and gain perspectives on the techniques being used, while remaining 100% solar, wind, and human powered. If you're interested in helping, you can donate to the larger nonprofit supporting Redhook Community Forum. That's added value. That was a great response. uh, that was a great response. Check out added value. Boom, boom, boom. Well, this is their previous site. Added value is now RHI. So thank you for their great work. Thank them for their great work. Cynthia responds, Locomotives, interesting to note that you're managed by BBG, where I have sometimes taken art classes, and you do say in the video that you prefer human labor to machines for a small site. Next time I drop off my composting at Union Square in Manhattan, I will think of you. Meanwhile, I will make a donation. Awesome. Thank you. Well, he's not managed by BBG. The site and the people in the video, their work is managed by BBG. But thank you, Cynthia. Thank you for chiming in, being authentic, and donating. Awesome video sub. Cheers again from Victoria, Canada. Makes it all worthwhile from the Compliment King. Nina from Norway says, I live in Norway at a smaller island, and I try to compost as much as I can. I can't do it in the winter because the garden is under at least a meter of snow. But yeah, I get use of the stuff I compost to grow vegetables in summer. Awesome. We got a reply from Akhmostist The Compostist. Nina, there's still a way. Ha. Okay. Let's see. Is that all the replies? That's all the replies. There should be way more, but we're thankful for what is and where we're going with it all. So if you're viewing this, please make sure that you like and subscribe to their channel. And we're going to get into it now. So here we go. Fair use for educational purposes, and because I'm involved in it. So let's maximize the screen. And again, this is by Locomotives. So if we click on their YouTube page, this is what comes up for them. You can see all the documentaries, the pieces that they've done, and the people and the places and the situations that they have focused in on. And what's their descriptive again? They said they focus in on Um, I just want to hear it again. Rel- Relatable people, relevant places, and familiar topics on the front lines of climate change. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between, let's get into it. Let's go. Fair use.
Do you ever wonder what happens to your food scraps when you throw them into a trash can? Most likely, they will end up in a landfill where they decompose anaerobically or without oxygen and produce methane, a potent greenhouse gas. But if your scraps are composted, they decay aerobically in the presence of oxygen, which doesn't produce methane. For some, a backyard compost pile is a perfect solution, but for those who live in large cities, this option is less viable.
New York, America, where we're getting food from all over the world. And for the most part, throwing it into the landfill is kind of wasting a resource that we
Domingo
spend.
Morales.
We've used so many resources.
That's the guy right there. That's my mentor, and who, schooled me on so many things as it pertains to composting and managing a composting site. He is the protege of David Buckle and the mentor and manager of Xander Shaw and Akhmostist The Compostist. So salute, Captain. Much appreciated. So this is your guy. This is your go-to guy if you're looking for composting. Here we go. Domingo.
Wasting a resource that we spent. We've used so many resources to bring into the country. For us to actually take those resources in the form of bananas, avocados, to take those resources and recycle them, keep that local, reduce the amount of trucks it takes to actually move this material around and create a resource such as compost, which is going to help us grow a more diverse variety of food in the city. We can actually reduce the environmental toll of all of this food waste that we have. The difference between majority of compost sites in the city and this compost.
I love the sound. Listen to the sounds. Look at beautiful Redhook, Brooklyn, composting site and farms. Beautiful. Oh, I miss it.
Site is that we don't use any fossil fuels, and we're the largest in the United States that runs on renewable resources, which means no fossil fuels being burned on the site, machines actually turning windrows. It's just people getting together as a community and getting this work done in the most environmentally friendly way.
Woo!
Hey, there's the woo.
He was calling me fossil fuel.
The woo, that's the call and response on the site. Yeah, you go down to Redhook, you'll understand more. You'll understand more.
I like the.
These are they're showing the volunteers, to Moko and, Sir David, the brother who's about to speak right now. His name is, Happy Black Future Month, brother. These are our steady volunteers who came all year round, all weather patterns, and put in that work. So these are the returning volunteers who keep the site going and the work going and the morale up where it needs to go. So salute to the volunteers, to all of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
The thought of taking care of everything in your community. I try to do my part whenever I can.
Peace, brother. Avalanche.
This mound was built about a week ago. It's probably 140, 150 degrees right now. And if we don't turn it, it'll just get hotter and hotter and it'll run out of oxygen. So this is still brand new. This is the reason why it's so much heat is because there's so much organic matter to break down. The things that have like a lot of cellulose, like corn, mango pits, eggshells, those things break down in the later stages of the compost. And if they don't break down, they just become a part of the structure. So you want to just...
Domingo dropping knowledge with confidence. I love it. He's like, nah, don't go to Akhmostist Xander. Come to me. I'm the head honcho. I'm going to break it down for you on levels. So...
Yeah, I guess I should ask you about the technique first before I start messing.
Basically, what you want to do, add it to this edge right here. So you want to aim for right here. All right. What we're trying to do is we're trying to extend that ridge. All right. So you do that for a couple years, and you start to do things like this.
How hot did you say this gets?
It gets all the way up to 160 degrees.
Now, when I first heard about Domingo, I was like, man, Domingo's forearms, man. That guy's forearms. This is why his forearms were the way that they were. He's a little he's a little chubbier now, but it's all good. He's got his own site, Compost Power in Dumbo, Brooklyn. Check it out. Xander is currently running the volunteer days and maybe even running the site now in Redhook after the site being defunct or not functioning for some time during the pandemic and layoffs. And he did his work in helping to bring it back to where it needs to be. So that's some of the future. That's some of the present and the future of where things are on the site and in these two men's lives. And me, after this, I would go on to have my own food scrap hauling business that was successful for a year and a half, and beneficial to so many community members and the city and the neighborhood. And where I'm at right now is this channel as it pertains to composting. And like I said, Compost Cologne and the Compost video game, in addition to other endeavors that I have going on in life. So, but right now we're present, we're here, and we're delving into it. So, cheers. This is one of the guys. I think this is Nate. Did they say? Yeah. What's his name again? They say all their names. Where the heck are their names at? Boom, 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 boom. Okay. Yeah, but the guy who he's talking to is one of the guys in charge of the documentary, who was the primary person in charge that day. Guy with the checkered shirt on. And this is Domingo working it out.
In the wintertime, it's the steam that brings volunteers.
Yeah, I bet.
They're like, what are you doing? If you kind of keep putting your food in a trash can and that trash can gets emptied every week, you really don't understand what's happening. You don't understand your waste. If you are composting it and you come to a compost site and you see like, wow, this really takes a lot of work to break down, it kind of changes people's idea of how they buy food. It changes their idea of how they throw food away. You come to a compost site where you're like sifting through compost and you see a bunch of fruit stickers, it kind of gives you an idea, hey, maybe I should tear off this fruit sticker before I put this in the compost. Maybe I should buy a little bit less lettuce if I'm not going to use it all. Maybe I'm buying too many onions or buying too many potatoes.
That's that right knowledge. That this is when we talk about this channel and how it's centered in sustainability and agriculture and composting specifically. This is covering all of it. Domingo, in that conversation, that one snippet, he covered why we compost, the importance of composting to just agriculture. You're seeing earthen material being moved around for the purpose of agricultural purposes. And benefits and sustainability. He broke it down in terms of the benefits of composting and how you go about it and how it just elevates and raises your consciousness and your awareness of not only what you're doing in the world in general, but just being aware of your footprint, your carbon print, your contribution to the world, how it can be positive or negative, and how it can be more positive as it pertains to the environment in a sustainable manner, as just being aware of your food, how much food you purchase. Do you need that amount? Maybe you should purchase a little less. How should it be stored and managed and handled? When you're done with it, what's the next step? How do you prep it for the next step? Peel off the stickers. So he's going through all the different levels and layers just in simple format, simple terminology. And this is beautiful. I mean, just this quote unquote shot right here of this pictorial is beautiful. The brown man putting the Caucasian man to work. But no, that's just me being a little silly. But just three human beings just doing the work, and it's Domingo is just doing his thing, man, and just a beautiful teacher and mentor. So. Good times, good times, good times, good times. Great work. One hand technique.
So where do you send this finished compost off to?
So there's a bunch of sites around the city. Since we're funded by the city, we're able to give the compost away for free. And and we give it to community gardens, edible schoolyards program where they're growing food in school gardens. We have a dozen urban farms in Brooklyn that we actually supply compost to.
That's gotta feel real good though, keeping it local from start to finish.
I don't know, Domingo. I think I'm out of shape. So this is our sealing method. Takes these more
Xander
mature
Shaw.
compost materials and we put it on top of the really raw stuff, and it seals it from the outside conditions. So the smell doesn't escape, the heat stays in, and all the pests stay out.
We haven't had a rat on site since 2011. It stops the animals from seeing fresh organic matter just sitting out here. Because this is like Thanksgiving times 10 for any kind of creature.
And that's a pretty big accomplishment, composting in Brooklyn, where we see rats.
And that was Akhmostist The Compostist, ladies and gentlemen. So let's Xander Shaw and then Akhmostist The Compostist.
More mature compost materials.
Talking about the sealing method after you've done, I think a few weeks ago or the previous week, we touched on a salad day and building a fresh pile and David Buckle's technique. This is a technique that is very, very similar. I think more efficient for how we did things. And Xander's touching on the sealing technique of how you can't just leave the raw material. They should have actually put me in before Xander, not on some ego tip, but in terms of the process, because what I was doing was the process before Xander of, building the initial pile and the initial build, and flattening the top and then letting it cone up and pile up again. And then after that's done, then it goes to Xander's explanation and technique of what he's doing right here of sealing that fresher, newer material that has a lot of raw organic material in it. So you need to cover it with that layer, that seal that's about 12 to 15 inches thick, to, like he's explaining, to block out the smell from coming out, to keep the heat in and to keep the rodents out as well. And this is a technique that we're utilizing. He's not going into fine detail. The documentary isn't here, and neither am I. But yeah, it's just different piles around, and then you build up using a certain technique. So just giving you all the snippet. So, but yeah, they chose to go Xander second, because I know the sciences, and then save the best for last. So Akhmostist The Compostist.
Put it on top of the really raw stuff, and it seals it from
and
the
then
outside.
Over here, these are one of our youth volunteers from GCF, Green City Force. I meant to shout them out as well, for steadily supplying volunteers and young people who are ready to become better human beings and better professionals in the world in general, and efficient agriculturalists. And so setting them up for success in life in general, and specifically as it pertains to earthen matters, be it a maker, because sometimes we have to make things on site, but primarily as it pertains to agriculture. So this is one of our main young stars right here, and that's you're seeing in addition to the grown-up volunteers that you've seen, and some of which you heard speak. We also have some youth volunteers who are there as well with Green City Force GCF. So explained it, Xander, very well. You did very well. Thank you, man.
Materials, and we put it on top of the really raw stuff, and it seals it from the outside conditions. So the smell doesn't escape, the heat stays in, and all the pests stay out.
We haven't had a rat on site since 2011. It stops the animals from seeing fresh organic matter just sitting out here. Because this is like Thanksgiving times 10 for any kind of creature.
And that's a pretty big accomplishment.
We gotta play that again. How you doing,
The
Akhmos?
smell doesn't escape, the heat stays in, and all
All right,
the
Xander,
pests
it's
stay
Akhmos
out.
time.
We haven't had a rat on site since 2011. It stops the animals from seeing fresh organic matter just sitting out here. Because this is like Thanksgiving times 10 for any kind of creature.
So I'm as you're building up the pile, building up the mound, the initial build, if you just keep tossing it up, it's going to roll down and become wider and wider. So you need to flatten the top for the material to stay and stick and be on a flat surface and get the height that you need, because the mound has to be at least 3 by 3 by 3. And so we're flattening, smoothing it out, allowing it to get wider appropriately. And then as you toss on top, the height is going to get there. And then towards the end, when all the material is essentially done being utilized, all the supplies are done being utilized to build that initial mound, it's going to start to cone based upon how you toss things up at the end. You might need to do some basic shaping of it with the rake. And so that's what I'm doing here is I'm combing it with the rake and providing the structure, adjusting the structure as we're doing the initial build. So that's what's happening here, why I'm raking. You got to go to Redhook and get the fullness. I like my arms right there. Look at my hair. Now and then, and now.
10 for any kind of creature.
And
that's what I was saying, like keeping, if we just built a fresh build of salad day and left it out like that. I mean, look at all this fresh material. You got bread, carbohydrates, pasta, onions, apples, maybe a Skittle or two in there. Maybe a piece of a chocolate bar in there, but predominantly produce, fruits and vegetables. So the raccoons will love this, the roaches, the rats, even some cats and some stray dogs. You know what I mean? So the microorganisms will love it, but the macroorganisms, but more importantly, the larger creatures that you don't want in the pile and on the site, the possums, to be doing what they would be doing. So you got to do it using a certain technique and certain stages to complete the process. So they kind of did it backwards. So what I'm doing is the initial part. What Xander is doing is the second part. And what Domingo was being shown to do with the main guy who was talking is the third part of, well, he was doing a turn. So he was doing a different task. So he was showing this mound if it was a week later. So there's a mound that's near it that he was turning or aerating or transporting from one location to another. And so a week later, that this pile is that you see on the screen is going to look like the pile that he was turning, and then once it's done being aerated, you got to sweep in with the brooms like you were seeing. So they kind of like did it backwards in a very, very smart manner in terms of filming and approach of storytelling. So there we go.
Times 10 for any kind of creature.
And that's a pretty big accomplishment. Composting in Brooklyn, where we see rats on the street, but they're not in our.
Shouts out to the natives, Thanksgiving and all of that. I just want to shout out to the indigenous people because we are on stolen land in a great capacity. And shouts out to the, indigenous folks, First Nation folks of New York City, Brooklyn and all of that. So thank you. Got to acknowledge them.
Where we see rats on the street.
And it is a great achievement. It's a great achievement. It's a great achievement. Great achievement.
Out here. Because this is like Thanksgiving times 10 for any kind of creature.
And that's a pretty big accomplishment. Composting in Brooklyn, where we see rats on the street, but they're not in our sight.
That's right.
We don't often consider food waste as a resource. By throwing food waste in the trash, we ignore a natural process that can recycle our waste into a usable resource. Our favorite thing about this compost operation is its ability to create a community by helping volunteers appreciate this natural cycle.
The reason why doing it by hand is more important is because you can actually get a better sense of what's happening. Machines can't pull out trash. Machines can't say, hey, this doesn't belong. Hey, this fruit needs a chop. The machine is just, no feeling, no emotion, no detail that a human brings to any kind of work. A site like this is very educational, and there's sites all around the world that come to study this site to see what we're doing so they can bring it back to their systems. And that really just makes it worthwhile to know that we're creating a difference, not only by diversity.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And they're showing the farm. They're, showing the pan view, of the farm and everything.
A site like this is very educational, and there's sites all around the world that come to study this site to see what we're doing so they can bring it back to their systems. And that really just makes it worthwhile to know that.
That's the sifting tunnel where the cured and finished compost would be held, sifted and unsifted, or as some may say, shifted. And on a super hot day, as the sun is beaming, or if it's super rainy, you go in a sifting tunnel and you pull out the sifting tables as you see there, and you do some sifting, or you do a turn in the tunnel. So very, very important, very, very key. And in the back is the curing of the compost that's going to sit for a few months and be aerated a few times in that process. But once it moves to the back, it gets named after a month, whereas up front, it might be named after a person, a situation, a conversation. And then once it gets turned, the material moved in the wheelbarrows from the front to the back, it gets named after a month for us to keep track so that we know the age and the stages of the composting so that it can be ready to be given away. Once it goes in the tunnel, it's essentially ready to be given away. It's at least, 4 months in age. So, because that's our process. We start to finish about 3.5, 4 months. So on average, 4 months before it's ready to be given away. 5 is absolutely ready to be given away. So there you have it.
It just makes it worthwhile to know that we're creating a difference, not only by diverting the food.
Now, this is a different way that we store or care for and cure the compost. This tarp on top is a way to kind of control the moisture and air levels a bit more. And, these piles may sit a bit longer for a certain reason. And just how they're constructed on the pipe. This is an assistant way by way of the turbine or windmill to this house right here that's in the center is what's charged by way of the windmill or the small turbine is where the energy comes from to send air through the pipage that is running underneath these particular piles. And this is a second way of aeration on the site, in addition to allowing it to be aerated once a week with a turn like you saw up front in Domingo doing. These, because they're being aerated in a different way, we can treat them a bit differently and allow them to sit maybe a little bit longer. But they also need to be turned and aerated and checked up on as well. So that's what these piles are. And this is a similar process, yet a different technique, even how they're constructed and how they're taken off the pipe. And in the winter time, we don't, we try not to have anything there because you have to weatherize the site. And so, I don't want to bog you down with the fine details and the super nuances and have more talking from me. But that's what you're seeing right here. So this is the house that takes care of the air for the pipage running underneath these particular windrows, and the wind structure should be over here to the right. So that's what you're seeing in this site.
Food scraps that we divert and turn it into a resource, but by
and you saw the solar panels. So we got wind, we got solar,
not only
covering
by
it all.
diverting the food scraps that we divert.
See that? Solar panels over here. We got the hay. We got all of that. Give me just a moment. We'll be right back. So yeah, getting back to it. This is the beautiful farm, the world famous. These signs all say Wakanda 1, Wakanda 2. This was created in 2018. So those were the times, Black Panther Part 1. And yeah, you're seeing this is beautiful. This is the farm. These are our team members, our teammates, and beautiful buildings in the background, schools and homes and all of that. And moving forward.
and turn it into a resource, but by educating people so that they can do the same thing that we're doing on their own scale. It's hard work, but what makes
those they were getting they were digging into a more mature pile that's been sitting at least for like 3-4 weeks or strongs, that where the organic material has decomposed and broken down enough, where now you can use that as seal for a fresh bill, or younger piles and material that might need some coverage for the reasons that Xander explained, and that I explained earlier. So those were the volunteers who were sent to work on a different task, because you have to know how to task appropriate. And they were filling up the wheelbarrows with that material. So that's what it looks like when you're either doing a roll turn or when you're getting the seal ready to be used for a younger pile, especially for a fresh build.
It's worth it is the people, actually seeing the interest in the people, seeing the community that's made. This guy's got new muscles, man. I'm noticing that chest right there. Okay.
You guys out here for brunch? Is that what I hear?
Thank you, fellas.
Yeah.
We gotta do that. Next time.
Give thanks. Thanks for the compliment, Domingo. Man, I wish my body looked like that right now, but maybe I'll get back to that. So that was that, and now I'm going to play it uninterrupted from start to finish. But at the end, what you saw was us doing a circle up, and we have to acknowledge, the activities that took place, the teams, who were on the teams, what we did, what we accomplished, what tasks were being completed, tonnage, and just morale check-in, word of the day, what came up for us, and sending the volunteers and the staff and, anybody who's on the site involved, on to the rest of their day on a good note, and just bringing it all together at the end. So that's what the circle up is. And what you're seeing is us greeting and thanking each other. And, you got to put all the tools away when you're done with the task, finish everything up, close it up, then put the tools away, and then circle up and have that. And then off goes the volunteers. And then we return after lunch as a staff and finish things up or finish some additional tasks for the day. So that's what you just saw. And now we're going to go back and play it uninterrupted.
Yeah, do that.
Do you ever wonder what happens to your food scraps when you throw them into a trash can? Most likely, they will end up in a landfill where they decompose anaerobically or without oxygen and produce methane, a potent greenhouse gas. But if your scraps are composted, they decay aerobically in the presence of oxygen, which doesn't produce methane. For some, a backyard compost pile is a perfect solution, but for those who live in large cities, this option is less viable.
New York, America, where we're getting food from all over the world. And for the most part, throwing it into the landfill is kind of wasting a resource that we've used so many resources to bring into the country. For us to actually take those resources in the form of bananas, avocados, to take those resources and recycle them, keep that local, reduce the amount of trucks it takes to actually move this material around, and create a resource such as compost, which is going to help us grow a more diverse variety of food in the city, we can actually reduce the environmental toll of all of this food waste that we have. The difference between majority of compost sites in the city and this compost site is that we don't use any fossil fuels. And we're the largest in the United States that runs on renewable resources, which means no fossil fuels being burned on the site, machines actually turning windrows. It's just people getting together as a community and getting this work done in the most environmentally friendly way.
Woo! Woo! One day he was calling me fossil fuel.
I like the thought of taking care of everything in your community. I try to do my part whenever I can.
This mound was built about a week ago. It's probably 140, 150 degrees right now. And if we don't turn it, it'll just get hotter and hotter and it'll run out of oxygen. So this is still brand new. The reason why it's so much heat is because there's so much organic matter to break down. The things that have like a lot of cellulose like corn, mango pits, eggshells, those things break down in the later stages of the compost. And if they don't break down, they just become part of the structure. So you want to just...
Yeah, I guess I should ask you about the technique first before I start messing.
Basically what you want to do is add it to this edge right here. So you want to aim for right here. All right. What we're trying to do is we're trying to extend that ridge. All right. Yeah, you do that for a couple years and you start to do things like this.
How hot did you say this gets?
It gets all the way up to 160 degrees. Woo. In the wintertime, it's the steam that brings volunteers.
Yeah, I bet.
They're like, what are you doing? You know, if you kind of keep putting your food in a trash can and that trash can gets emptied every week, you really don't understand what's happening. You don't understand your waste. If you are composting it and you come to a compost site and you see like, wow, this really takes a lot of work to break down, it kind of changes people's idea of how they buy food. It changes their idea of how they throw food away. You come to a compost site where you're like sifting through compost and you see a bunch of fruit stickers, it kind of gives you an idea, hey, maybe I should tear off this fruit sticker before I put this in the compost. Maybe I should buy a little bit less lettuce if I'm not going to use it all. Maybe I'm buying too many onions or buying too many potatoes.
So where do you send this finished compost off to?
So there's a bunch of sites around the city. Since we're funded by the city, we're able to give the compost away for free. And we give it to community gardens, edible schoolyards program where they're growing food in school gardens. We have a dozen urban farms in Brooklyn that we actually supply compost to.
That's got to feel real good though, keeping it local from start to finish.
Woo. I don't know, Domingo. I think I'm out of shape.
So this is our sealing method. Takes these more mature compost materials and we put it on top of the really raw stuff, and it seals it from the outside conditions. So the smell doesn't escape, the heat stays in, and all the pests stay out.
We haven't had a rat on site since 2011. It stops the animals from seeing fresh organic matter just sitting out here. Because this is like Thanksgiving times 10 for any kind of creature.
And that's a pretty big accomplishment, composting in Brooklyn, where we see rats on the street, but they're not in our sites.
We don't often consider food waste as a resource. By throwing food waste in the trash, we ignore a natural process that can recycle our waste into a usable resource. Our favorite thing about this compost operation is its ability to create a community by helping volunteers appreciate this natural cycle.
The reason why doing it by hand is more important is because you can actually get a better sense of what's happening. Machines can't pull out trash. Machines can't say, hey, this doesn't belong. Hey, this fruit needs a chop. The machine is just, you know, no feeling, no emotion, no detail that a human brings to any kind of work. A site like this is very educational, and there's sites all around the world that come to study this site to see what we're doing so they can bring it back to their systems. And that really just makes it worthwhile to know that we're creating a difference, not only by diverting the food scraps that we divert and turn it into a resource, but by educating people so that they can do the same thing that we're doing on their own scale. It's hard work, but what makes it worth it is the people, actually seeing the interest in the people, seeing the community that's made. This guy's got new muscles, man. I'm noticing that chest right there. Oh, okay.
You guys out here for brunch? Is that what I hear?
Thank you, fellas.
Yeah.
You gotta do that. Next time. A little bit.
Well. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. What an honor. What an honor. Journey continues. The legacy lives on. And I want to thank you all for joining the broadcast and for making it long last. And do good in the world. Happy Black History. Happy Black Future Month. Share that to other human beings and help us filling the missing pages of history, our story, our human experience, especially in the Western world. It'll go a long way towards the healing that the planet needs and the world needs. So do your part. And from the sustainability level, agricultural, composting to be specific, do your part. You know, climate change, whatever your thing is. This is compost, and this is causations. So thank you very much. You are appreciated. And yeah, just until next time, what do you want to say? Until next time, with no delay, from Akhmostist The Compostist to you and yay, peace.